Conrad, I'm out! Hand me a mag! Oh, bro, I'm out! Hand me a mag!
Thanks, dude. There you go.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of InRange. Today we're going to talk about the M27 IAR, but actually not the gun itself, but more importantly the role that it's supposed to fulfill. And so we're seeing, at least in the Marine Corps at this point, the M27 IAR replacing the belt-fed M249 squad automatic weapon.
What a crazy idea.
And you know, it's the idea being parts interchangeability, some parts at least, magazine interchangeability, and the fact that a belt and the sustained fire the belt brings to the table isn't necessary for the squad automatic weapon. Sounds like a unique idea, except
this might have happened before.
in fact, it's happened identically before.
Pretty much, the closer we looked at it, yeah.
So the Soviets originally started off with the RPD, which was a belt-fed intermediate cartridge-fed, the M43,
Yep,
7.62x39, and then they switched to the magazine-fed or drum-fed RPK, which is really just a big AK.
Yep.
You know more about this, why don't you tell us about it?
Well, so the RPD was actually introduced right at the end of World War II. I don't know that any of them actually saw service in World War II. As far as I can tell, none did. But that's when the thing came in. And the idea was a belt-fed, but assault rifle caliber light machine gun, or literally a squad automatic weapon. And the problem was, well, that gun was a lot heavier than the rifles, and belt feed adds a level of complexity to a gun that may or may not actually be necessary. And what the Soviets decided was that they would be better off having a squad automatic version of the AK rifle. It would have the same magazine capacity, or the same magazine compatibility. So the RPK was issued with 40 round sticks, which got one of those there.
So it gives you a little extra firepower than a 30.
Yep, but still very easy to carry. That's the downside to drums, is they're always a pain in the ass to carry. I mean, you've got a drum pouch there, and it's this lumpy, awkward thing.
It is.
It's way more hassle to carry that than to carry two 30-round stick mags.
True.
Same thing applies to this 75-round drum, but they certainly do have their place. And so these were issued. And if you think about it, a 75-round drum is not that different from an RPD that's going to be running, well, actually 50 rounds in a belt.
However, with an RPD, once you ran through your belt, you now have to feed and load another belt, which is a slow, tedious process.
Definitely.
Could go wrong.
Yep.
And you can't get supply from the other guys in your squad.
Exactly. They have to take the ammo out of their mags, load it into your belts, presumably you've kept some of your empty belts, and then you load that into a belt box. One of the RPD drums are actually just a belt holding container. Or let the thing flop down outside the gun where you risk getting dirt in the ammo. Really a lot simpler to just have this. And I can give this to Carl if he's got an AK and he can run it. He can give me some of his 30-round mags if I need more resupply. And on top of that, you have a rifle here that is now functions the same way. Training for this is basically interchangeable with training for the AK.
Manual of arms is the same. Safety is actually now on. Yes.
Most of the mechanical parts are interchangeable. Things like the bolts, the bolt carriers, the fire control parts are all interchangeable. And so you have a logistically superior gun, as well as, let's face it, in many ways, a tactically superior gun, despite maybe from the outside looking like you've got less firepower because you don't have a belt fed.
Now, the idea being here is they only changed a couple things to make this the light machine gun or the squad automatic weapon. They reinforced the receiver.
Yep.
They made it a much thicker barrel to be able to deal with the higher sustained rate of fire that this gun's expected to deliver.
Right.
Provided a bipod for support and stability.
Longer barrel as well as heavier.
Longer barrel. And they did make a windage adjustable rear sight to be able to just make it a little bit more fine-tuned for the field when you needed the rounds to go where it needed to go.
Exactly. And they adopted this club foot style of buttstock. However, this stock is interchangeable with the standard AK stock.
It is.
So the fittings, the rear trunnion, all that's the same.
And now later they did add an optics rail, which this one happens to have. Some of them do not, but you could modernize this slightly with better sighting system.
Sure.
But originally it was just irons.
Exactly.
But really, it's an AK, thicker, longer barrel, bipod, better receiver or thicker receiver, otherwise interchangeable.
Now, what we have here with that M27 is basically an AR with a heavier barrel and a bipod and the capacity to use drum magazines.
Pretty much. Now, I'd say there's a little more going on that's unique to this gun than the AR than there was from the AK to the RPK.
Right.
So this is, of course, a piston-operated gun.
Yep.
And that does make sense. When you're dealing with something that you expect to deliver a high sustained rate of fire, the piston guns are more reliable. Okay. The AR was never designed to be a high sustained rate of fire gun. It was capable of fully automatic capacity for short durations of time.
Right, that gas tube is a liability when you are actually using it as a machine gun.
And we have a video with Jim Sullivan in which he talked about some of the things he was trying to do to make that DI system more compatible with sustained rates of fire, but it really is kind of kludgy. You start dealing with open bolt, you start dealing with radiated gas tubes, it's just not quite there. So going with a piston for your squad automatic weapon, if you're going to go magazine fed, makes a hell of a lot of sense. So I get that. But other than that, you're dealing with the same manual of arms as an AR.
Yep.
So anybody in the field that picks this up is going to know how to use it the same as they would their M4 or their M16A2 or whatever they're used to using.
Yep.
They don't need to realize there's a piston in there or that there's differences mechanically. It's irrelevant.
Right.
Same safety, same trigger, same everything, same sighting systems even. But you've got free float, bipod, very heavy barrel. In fact, heavier barrel than an H-bar.
In fact, heavier barrel than my RPK.
It is. And so now, to be fair, this is a civilian equivalent of the M27 IAR, but functionally almost identical.
Aside from only being semi-auto, it is literally identical.
Pretty close. I mean, there's maybe some nuanced little things here and there, but in terms of function and use, the same. Okay, so the other thing is when we built this civilian version, we came in at exactly the same weight.
Yep.
12.6 pounds.
Yep.
So
it's heavy.
It's heavy. However, it's lighter than a SAW.
Yeah, a lot lighter than a SAW.
But when
this is a lot lighter than an RPD.
It is, yeah. Now, we saw guys doing kind of clever stuff with RPDs, like cutting them down and stuff in Vietnam.
Yeah, but the Soviets never did that officially. That was like a U.S. Special Forces sort of thing.
Sure.
What's interesting to me is that where the Soviets went with a light machine gun and an assault rifle side by side, what the Marine Corps has decided to do is basically take a hybrid of the two systems and give everybody the same gun.
They seem to be going there.
Yeah.
Okay, the current indications as of when this is being recorded, which is in August of 2017, that this is being adopted as the squad automatic weapon. However, what we're hearing is it's also getting adopted as the DMR and potentially being finally adopted as the Marine Corps standard issue rifle. Yeah. So everybody has essentially a SAW, everybody has a DMR, and everybody has a rifle.
Right.
Now that's different than what the Russians did.
Right. Well, the AK is not really suitable as a DMR in its standard configuration, where the AR-15 has that capability if you build it right.
Or an AR-15-like system. So this M27 IAR with the cost being weight is able to deliver on all those accounts.
Right.
It can provide a fairly high sustained rate of fire, much higher than a standard DI M16 derivative because of the piston and the barrel. It is sufficiently accurate to be a DMR. This is a
absolutely
1.5 MOA kind of gun with good ammo.
Which is, by the way, twice the accuracy that you would have gotten from a specific mission intended sniper rifle 75 years ago.
Oh, true. I mean, modern things make a big difference. Of course, and now we're back in the year 2018, 2017. Modern sighting systems in ACOG with the M27 IAR, they went with a 3.5 just because of the recoil to keep the eye relief a little away from the shooter. They also have a backup RMR, this is dual illuminated with no battery.
Nice.
So there's no battery involved in this gun. The Marines pretty much got away from batteries. Yeah. Now, of course, the laser unit does have a battery, but that's a tertiary sighting system at that point.
Yeah.
They are sight crazy. Rear eye, we got iron sights, we got ACOG, we got backup RMR, we've got a laser, we've got every sighting system possible. But again, this is very interesting in that we're seeing this iteration of which the Americans are now abandoning a belt-fed squad automatic heavy weapon. Well, heavier, not a heavy weapon, but heavier than this equivalent. And the same thing the Russians did in the 1960s.
Yep. So we adopted the small caliber cartridge and they copied us with the 5.45, and then they went to this concept and now we're copying them on that.
And just like we see with the drum that you have there, the M27 IAR, standard old USGI mags, sure, good to go.
That one's not anymore.
Regular old P mags, which are now officially adopted.
Yep.
These are good to go.
That one will still work though.
Magpul's now making 40s. Wow, that's really similar to, in fact, it's a little shorter, almost the same length. 40s now, these are not officially adopted, but I wouldn't be surprised to see these get floating around when the M27 becomes a squad automatic weapon in large volumes and numbers, right? And, oh my, we also have the drum, which we're hearing they are experimenting with.
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense. What we want to see, what I think you're going to see with this, and I think you saw with the Soviets as well, is you start with a drum,
Right.
go to the mags.
That's what makes sense.
I mean, you can carry an extra drum. This is an official mag pull pouch for this, but it is really clumsy. But if you start with a drum and you're in the field with the drum, you deplete your 60 or your 70 or whatever, you dump the drum and then go to your 40s.
Standard mags.
Go to your 30s, and then when you're out of that, you go to your buddy and go, hand me a mag. You're still in the fight, regardless of any belt feed issues or anything like that.
Right.
So the same thing is new again, and we're seeing the Americans at this point copying, essentially, Soviet doctrine.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch people concerned about the reduction in firepower from not having a belt fed. But, you know, if you think about it closer, you might realize that there's not necessarily much reduction in firepower actually happening.
Well, the other argument that's being made with the M27 IAR is that the SAW could provide a long rate of fire of a 100-round belt downrange, but its ability to keep a beat zone in a small area was quite difficult.
Right, it was a less accurate weapon than something like this, especially set up with that ACOG on it.
So essentially, rounds downrange don't suppress unless the rounds downrange at least are near the adversary.
Right, they have to be close enough to have a moral or psychological effect.
So with this, in theory, you can apply accurate, fully automatic fire in bursts directed towards an enemy as long as you know where they are, and you'll be more likely to suppress them with less ammunition expended, and still do not need the higher sustained rate of fire that a belt fed would provide.
And since everyone, in theory, hopefully, I think it'd be a good move for them. If everyone has one of these, you can have suppression coming from two different guys in different positions from different angles simultaneously, in a way that if you just have one squad automatic weapon, you have to pick where you're going to put that piece of firepower.
That's a very good point. So with the Soviet squad, when you had one guy with the RPK or two guys with an RPK, they had to be strategically positioned and you had to protect them and move them with you.
Right.
If everyone has a SAW or SAW equivalent,
You got some more flexibility going
anybody can provide that role immediately when they need it.
Right.
Or if there is that long range shot, and all of them are, of course, sufficiently marksmanship trained, they can also apply that DMR as well.
Right.
That guy's out there at 450, popping his head out.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's an interesting concept, and I don't think it's wrong. The only thing that I would question is the weight of this for everybody, but they are Marines, that means they're tough and strong, right?
They better be.
And they should be highly mobilized and mechanized.
Right. That's one of the things going on with U.S. forces is they're carrying a crap ton of gear. And so if you're carrying a 100-pound pack, does an extra 3 pounds on the rifle make that much difference? Yes, but on the other hand, you're not going to be hiking overland all that far to begin with.
Well, hopefully. The thing is, if things go wrong, now you've got a problem, right?
You have a real problem.
If you're aligning yourself to an entirely mechanized force and therefore load them down to the point where they can barely move, but they're only supposed to move 100 yards at a time, well, okay. But the minute that goes to hell and your, vehicle blows up and now you're walking for 50 miles across enemy territory,
now
you've got a big problem.
Yeah.
And a supply chain problem and all the things that come with that. Yeah. So there's no right answer.
Everything's compromises.
Everything is a compromise.
Trade-offs and compromises.
So we're also going to do a part 2 on this in which we deep dive into the M27 IAR internals and firing.
Yeah, there really is a lot more to that than just, there's more than just a standard AR-15, and there's even more than a typical gas piston.
Yep, this is not just another AR. Yeah. So they've done more than just upsize it like they did with the RPK.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, aren't the Americans kind of the progenitors of the squad automatic weapon with the BAR?
Oh, that's a tricky question because the BAR was really intended to be an automatic rifle.
I know.
And remember that the original BAR didn't have a bipod.
I know.
It was not intended to be a long range or it was a suppressive weapon for the assault is really what it was meant for.
Yeah, I meant to close this video off, but I just thought this is an interesting conversation to be had. Let's go out of World War I. Let's go to World War II.
Okay.
When you think of the World War II American squad, they were using the BAR as a squad automatic weapon.
Yes, but there were a lot of people doing that.
Okay, so others.
The British had the Bren.
Yep.
The French had the Châtellerault. The Russians had the DP-28. Pretty much everyone had. The line between light machine gun and squad automatic weapon is a very gray line.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? There is what is it that differentiates a squad automatic weapon or individual, infantry automatic rifle, from that of a light machine gun? What is that line?
Well, originally it was weight and portability.
Well, they didn't call that a light machine gun. They called that a squad automatic weapon.
Yeah, but the Soviets have weird names for everything.
That's true.
They called the AK a submachine gun.
That's true.
Or they treated it.
That's true. That's true.
Originally, there were two automatic rifles, the SAW and the BAR. Mm-hmm. And no one after that really developed an automatic rifle so much. Everyone after that kind of went more towards the light machine gun by increasing the weight and increasing the sustained fire capability. So you'd be looking at things like Madsons and Lewis guns. The 08-15 Maxim is really at the extreme end of that. And then the Bren gun took up that mantle. At the Bren gun, you're talking 25 to 30 pounds. of gun. Something like this or that is substantially less.
Yeah, we're talking 12, 13 pounds.
So actually,
maybe even a little less.
You could probably argue that this would fill the role of an automatic rifle rather than a light machine gun.
Well, you know, maybe the differentiation would be things like interchangeable barrels.
Yeah,
maybe that would be an example of a light machine gun versus a squad automatic weapon.
That would be a good differentiating factor.
That could be, although that's blurred too.
Yeah, the Lewis doesn't have a swappable barrel.
Yeah.
Well, it does actually. It's not really quick swappable.
I should say quick change.
Yeah.
Quick change. So a light machine gun can hold a position for a longer duration of time because of barrel heat and all that. Boy, that could be a discussion that could go on for hours, couldn't it?
Yes, we just opened a very deep hole here.
A big can of worms. Debate that in the comments if you'd like, or on our Discord server.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll close that out. So
yes, we'll come back and talk about that distinction.
That's a different topic. So here we are, guys. We're essentially nothing is new under the sun, and you'll see this as a recurring theme on InRange. Things that suddenly look new and everybody's all excited about the M27 IAR. We go and we go, well, wait a minute, that was done in the 1960s by the Soviets. Okay.
But you know what? This is a lot better at it.
I'm not saying I'm not saying they're functionally equivalent. This is a fantastic rifle in many ways.
Yeah.
Much more so than that, but that's a 1960s thing, and this is a 2017 thing.
Yep.
And it's a more nuanced approach to the topic.
Yes.
It's not just, let's make squad automatic weapon. This is potentially capable of all those things.
A lot of different roles. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to follow.
But nothing new under the sun. So guys, if you like this kind of content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It is what keeps us alive. It's what allows us to do things like bring you an M27 IAR to discuss it.
Yep.
Quite honestly. If you can't do that, we understand. Please just subscribe to our channels everywhere, and more importantly, share with your friends, because we can't rely on these algorithms to support us. Thanks a lot.